Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Yeah, that's me, Tony Caravan.
Good morning.
Another day. Thought I was totally prepared, but I realized the headphones aren't completely on. Good morning, world. I've got a bunch of stuff to go over with you today once I get caught up here. I just got my YouTube live notification and the title card looks okay. That's good. I always like to double check that. I think it's this hat that rounds your face out. You know, that's my my vanity. But anyway, since this show title card has something about the climate on there, we're gonna
Weekend weather.
give you the weekend weather for the mid-Atlantic states. And today it's currently 34 degrees here where I am, and it's looking like today it's going to stay in the 30s, low to mid 30s, and this entire weekend it's going to be pretty much in the mid 30s, maybe getting up to 36. And the lows are going to be in the teens. Friday night, perhaps 20, low 20s. So it looks like we got another through Sunday. We're going to be in the 30s in the day and the teens or 20s at night. And you could pretty much take that to the bank across the swath of the mid-Atlantic states. We're going to get into why that matters. All right. But in the meantime,
Here's what's happening.
I have still drinking this. Even though I had a really good, decent night's sleep last night, which seems to have erased all of the ill effects of the previous horror show night, which was I talked about briefly yesterday. For those new to this broadcast, this live TV broadcast, the most popular morning show on the internet. Despite the numbers you may see, those view numbers are not accurate. We're basically seen by millions of people worldwide, and I'm glad you could be one of those people. And if you are, just don't forget to subscribe and like and join the fun on a regular basis. Today I wanted to talk about somebody came in and came out when I said that. I pulled the handkerchief. It scared them. I was going to list this under comedy, but I decided against it. I used to do a lot of, I used to do a lot of everything. But the, one of the things that I did in fairly recent times, and I'm going to pull up another browser for this. I hope it doesn't interfere with this particular webcast. I probably should have just done it on an extra page. But first thing I wanted to talk about is a topic that a lot of people are getting into right now. And the North Atlantic current. And, they used to call that, and why this thing suddenly decided to switch to Netflix on there, I have no idea. That was really weird. You've heard of the Gulf Stream. They used to call it the conveyor, and suddenly like that has changed. And now it has a, it's a whole different story. I'm not looking at you. I'm ignoring you, unfortunately, because I'm trying to pull up this new name that they call it. And of course, like everything else on the internet, remember, I created a better version of search And that's why I don't make money on this. I mean, you do a search and you got everything from Mid-Atlantic farm credit loans coming up. You know, I'll tell you. Let's try ocean. Okay. Atlantic Ocean circulation is the weakest in at least 1,600 years, study finds. And it's called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. Is that like in Star Trek that one time? It's AMOC time. Anyway, AMOC, Atlantic Meridional, overturning circulation. And this was actually, I just accidentally pulled up CBS News, which I would never consider as a source of information, because I don't trust any of the networks. Because as I said in the last couple of videos, they're used car salesmen. That's all they are. They're used car salesmen that use politics as their content, and try to and have basically destroyed America by creating such division that the country's no longer the United States. It's just America. Ain't coming back, folks. And it was destroyed by CBS, ABC, NBC, PBS, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. They destroyed it. And the Washington Post and the New York Times and various other affiliated newspaper chains, which all work for the corporatocracy, who are the people at the top pulling the strings of the marionettes, who the lowest rung of people on the face of the planet, and even in this country, are the politicians. They're not higher. The president is not the leader of the free world. He's the lowest rung, right? Bureaucrats are higher than the president, and we've seen that last year. You got to gargle with that stuff. I had a cereal this morning that consisted of some oats, just generic box of oats. Not like Quaker oats, the ground oats, but the circular oats. I sprinkle cinnamon on there, which is has medicinal effects. A tablespoon of honey, some shredded organic coconut instead of sugar, and then some fresh pure maple syrup. And of course, one hopes that the maple syrup and the honey are truly pure. Now, I did some due diligence on the honey, the brand, and they apparently, it does come from an actual beekeeper farm area. And so it seems that is real honey. But as I've said before with the FDA, what you have to watch out is they are lobbied it's the same with Congress. They are lobbied so much by the various food and drug companies that they slip in all these little things. So they slip them in the bills in Congress, amendments here and there at the last minute. This is called, they call them special interests or whatever. And it could just be a paragraph or a page or a little part of an amendment. And same with the FDA, when they approve something, they basically have these lines in there that what a definition, where they redefine the definition of pure. So when it says pure, like I got some, actually I have one right here. And I don't want to, I'll cover over the brand name because I don't want any kind of thing. But here, see, this says aloe vera, and it says 100% gel, right? But if you read the bottom, all right, I'll cover the name again, and you won't be able to read the bottom. You could see how it's in white on a clear thing, and it's very minuscule. Well, I took out like a magnifying glass the other day, and I was looking at that. And yes, indeed, there is aloe vera in there. but they're also about, I don't know, 6 or 7 other ingredients filling it up that, are anything from preservatives that they claim are preservatives to things that do other things. So when you see something that says 100%, right? Aloe vera, 100%, it's not. When you see something that says pure, honey, you have to really check. And sometimes they're even allowed on the back to put ingredients honey, like as if, and they don't have to even list the other stuff. When there might be some kind of corn, these sugars they make out of corn, everything has that in it. Everything has some kind of corn or soy oil or sugars from those basic crops. That's what big ag is all about. Nobody really talks about big tech, big pharma, big data, but nobody really talks about big ag. Bill Gates is like the biggest individual owner of farmland in the U.S. right now. It's got to be really scary. The man who's made so many speeches about depopulation, and he's in charge of, crops. Pretty scary. Well, anyway, this AMOC, as opposed to, the Spock thing, whatever, Amok time. If you remember Star Trek, the original series, they seem to be bringing this thing out. Spock, could you come on and talk about that? Anyway, so as opposed to Amok time and Mr. Spock, they used to call it. I just remember calling it the conveyor, the mid-Atlantic conveyor, because it's basically this conveyor belt type of thing. But obviously, they got some fancy name for it that they've developed in the past 20 years or so. I'm just doing this with my mustache. Real TV, real people here, folks. And so, I guess it's time to.
Let's get this show on the road.
I'm all over the place, but believe me, it all ties together. So, slept well last night. Woke up 3 times as usual, but no big deal. Managed to get back to sleep. When I woke up this morning, first time it was around 3-ish, and I kind of laid in bed till 4:30-ish or something close to that. I don't know. Currently, as I record these words, it's 5:33 a.m. in the mid-Atlantic states of the United States. That's on the eastern seaboard, Eastern Standard Time, and it's approximately 30 degrees temperature-wise here. So what I'm trying to get at is that this conveyor's been slowing down, all right? And right now it's the slowest it's been in 1,600 years. And also there's water. There's this fresh water coming from the Beaufort Sea, which is up like in between. It's like where Canada, like around between like Canada and Greenland. I wish I had maps that I could show you of that area. I'm going to hold up some things when we talk about another part of the world. But yeah, I have a world map here, but it's for the South Pole. I'm going to talk a little bit about Antarctica, right? And that's one of the world's freshest, biggest reservoirs of fresh water. And the problem with the way this conveyor thing works is it all has to do with the salt content, saline, of the ocean water and the heat of the water. So, it's like a natural, it's one of these other natural wonders. It's like the human body. It's like the idea that the moon, eclipses the sun perfectly and always faces one side always faces us. We're locked in this orbit. there's always all these crazy concurrences, that there are so many of them that, no wonder people talk about, conspiracies and stuff like that. But, this is another odd thing. It just so happens that the planet is structured in such a way, our world's oceans, that when, depending on whether it's fresh water, salty water, warm water, cold water, and what happens is, um, it if the salt water is heavier, it sinks. If it's fresh water, it tends to stay at the top. Okay, which makes sense. So if you pour salt in a glass of water, the salt will go down to the bottom. Right, it'll settle to the bottom. It's heavier. And the way the water molecular structure is, even though you have an almost infused salt water, it's not that still makes that water's kind of heavier. Not to be confused with heavy water, which is something to do with nuclear water, which you don't want to get near heavy water. So if I was swishing that around in my teeth, when I was younger, people do this. Girls used to do these kinds of things too. If it's like that Mentos thing where you put Mentos in or used to, I don't know if it still works. You put Mentos inside a cola bottle, shake it up, and then it like shoots up. The entire contents of the bottle comes out. Well, if you take it doesn't matter. There's certain candy bars that do it. I used to do it with the Three Musketeers when I was younger. And I was saying younger, I mean, even like, 20 years ago. If you take a bite of a Three Musketeers and start chewing it up, but don't finish chewing it up, don't swallow it. And then take a mouthful of, your favorite diet cola. It usually works with like or cola, any kind of, whatever it is, whatever your brand is. It like all foams, like it foams up in your mouth, and it's just like this interesting flavor. What does that have to do with the title card on today's morning show? What does it have to do with anything? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But it's an interesting thing. Next time you're at the checkout counter, grab a Three Musketeers bar, and I'm not being sponsored by them, and a bottle or plastic bottle of soda or whatever. I don't think it's hard to buy cans anymore. And give it a try. It cost you a couple of bucks, for the experience. Totally harmless. Other than the the sugar that you're putting in your mouth and whatnot. It's not the sugar that really destroys your teeth so much. It's bacteria. The idea is to keep your mouth bacteria clean. That's why you really brush your teeth and gums. You want to keep the bacteria out of your gums. That's just a little side nugget. I mean, yeah, if you're constantly eating pieces of candy and stuff, but that just helps bacteria grow. So anyway, this is incomplete, despite what you may see, like that last thing obviously was from CBS, that little note I read. But or report. This is in complete contrast, despite the way they'll spin it. And that's what, like I say, the news, the network news and the cable news channels and the print papers, the major print papers in this country and around the world, are basically selling cars, used car salesmen. And their content is basically just sensational, mostly manufactured information, parsed from stories and bits of information that they've culled together to spin and weave a tale that will keep their brainwashed binge watching couch potatoes tuned in during the used car commercials and the drug commercials. There's a road rally going on outside right now. I don't know if this new microphone is picking it up or not. It is omnidirectional, but it might just sound like a deep hum or something. But that's what that is. And so they have, anyway, so in this instance, we get into the New World, not the New World Order, the World Economic Forum Great Reset. And one of their, tenets of, the things that must be done in order to reset the world, right, is to deal with the Green New Deal because of climate change. But real climate change, they really mean global warming, right? This idea that CO2 has raised the temperature of the earth by like a couple degrees. Well, we know that that's entirely false. It's a lie. All right. It's a lie. Al Gore lied. Everything he said in both his movies were disproven. The UN was caught with falsifying, in emails and admitting that they were falsifying data. They lied. Okay. The IPCC, they lied. Right. There was never 95% of scientists approving that. That was a scam. There was something like out of the entire world, I forget what it was. There was some questionnaire about something, and it was something like, I don't know if even it was maybe 70 scientists out of 10,000 or something, that even like bought into this lie. And so what we're finding out now is the evidence is emerging that it's clear that we're entering a grand solar minimum. It's a cyclical thing. I could throw up a chart for you if I was using a different browser, but you've seen this chart. And if you haven't seen this chart, then don't criticize, okay? And don't play games with yourself and other people, and don't pass lies, because the chart's out there and you can see it, all right? There's a 400-year cycle we're going into it. The planet's cooling. I've got no time for liars and repeaters of fake things just because they saw it on some network news, right? Because some pretty girl news person or some Ken doll type news guy, right, reports this. Oh, he's such a nice guy. Or she's so hot, she can't possibly be lying. Take it from a guy who's been married twice and had about 6 other girls who were, long-term relationships with hot women. Yeah, the hotter they are, the more they lie and cheat. Okay. Sorry, women out there. You know what I'm talking about. It's hard to find a nice girl these days. Honest one. But, if, you get what you get, if you want that thing usually comes with strings attached. Anyway, so I used to deal with explore. How do I know any of this stuff? Like, why am I qualified to talk about any of this stuff? Okay. That would be the question one would ask. When you look back at the title card that might have brought you to this thing, there's an airplane frozen, all right, in the ice. Excuse me. Don't know if you heard that or not, but it's a problem. It's a problem I have, and I don't know what to do about it. I told you before I'm switching soon to, and I don't have one yet because it's a new product. But soon I will have the morning show official mugs and even the travel mug. And at that point, I will be switching to probably coffee. So I don't have to deal with this caffeine this way. But how do I know all this stuff? Well, you've heard all my stories about Hollywood, about radio business, about Washington, D.C. You know, like I said, I was one of those people that lived my life when I was younger. You know, a lot of people do the same thing pretty much their whole life, maybe switch jobs a couple of times, maybe travel to a new city, you know, do something different or whatever. But I moved around. I had so many addresses and so many different positions that, and I did it all before I was like, by the time I was 40, I had done more than, I don't know, dozens and dozens of people, you know, real journeyman, you know, and type of person. And you'd say, well, you know, that's like, you know, sometimes the idea comes up, well, you're a master, you know, uh, jack of all trades, master of none type of thing. And I say, no, it's a complete opposite of that. My idea was to master a thing and then move on and master another thing. And that's what I recommend people do. In other words, though some people just like to master, become a specialist. I talked about this briefly yesterday. One thing, and then they do it the rest of their lives. And yeah, and they end up rising to the top, whatever. Well, I found out at an early age that you can master a thing and rise to the top pretty quickly, within a year, usually. And so why waste the next year doing the same thing, or the year after that? You know, you got a life to live. You're on this planet for so long. As I experienced last week with serious health problems, you know, thought and hoped that maybe they're on the mend. In 2019, when I was just hospitalized for pretty much more than half the year, with several operations, actually a half dozen operations, you know, you don't know. You're here today, gone tomorrow. So, you know, I don't think I was that thoughtful about, you know, these kinds of things when I was 18, when I started to embark on these various adventures in life and experience. But, you know, it's like I said, it's like the, you know, the coincidence of the conveyor in the Atlantic. It just so happens that because, you know, that this movement of salt water, fresh water, heated water from down southern parts, that, you know, it causes a circulation in the ocean, which is why, like London, if this thing slows down anymore, for example, if you're listening to this show in the UK right now, your temperature in winter will be the same as Moscow's. But for the most part, it isn't. Though in recent years, you know, Europe has seen, and you're no longer part of that EU thing, but Europe and has very cold temperatures, you know, and that's partially because of the slowdown of this thing, and they can't hide it anymore. All right. Now, like all the stories will tell you, because everybody wants to talk about that movie, The Day After Tomorrow, where like the whole northern latitudes just froze up, right? It's not going to happen that way. They also want to try. They somehow tried to get Al Gore's and the UN's old global warming, because remember, it was global warming this is what they were saying, right? It was global warming, global warming, global warming. But then they had to change it. The reason they changed it to climate change, all right? The Green New Deal now, they don't really even talk about climate change. They're trying to, you know, they use these words like green. Well, CO2 is what greens the planet. A tree is green. A flower has green leaves. That's CO2. plants need CO2. All right. It's a greenhouse gas because they pump it into greenhouses for better growth in a greenhouse. Do you see the games, the head games they play with you? The mind games? It's all a mind game, right? And they use words and they twist words. As I say, they weave and spin. But anyway, so now it's either it's climate change or Green New Deal. And they're trying to say, oh, this climate change is all because of man's CO2. And now the ocean conveyor is, this snow that we're having, some absolute idiot I talked about a week or so ago, newscaster on the streets of New York when we had that snowstorm, that nor'easter, which is a term that goes way, way back before I was even born. All right. Nor'easter. Hey, we're having a nor'easter. Man, that's like 30, 40, 50. Who knows? It probably came up with that 80 years ago, 100 years ago. It means it's a storm in the North Atlantic, right? Nor'easter. Anyway, and it kind of circles back, the way storms, you've seen the hurricanes. All storms are kind of like usually some kind of circular type of situation, vortex, right? And so, the thing is spinning like this, so it's bringing it back. So if this is the Atlantic Ocean where I'm pointing my finger right now, all right, and it's spinning over to my eye here, okay? You see? Well, my eye might be Allentown, the Poconos in Pennsylvania, if you know where that is, all right? Allentown. Remember that Billy Joel song? Nor'easter. And in between there's New York City, and up here's Boston, Allentown, Philadelphia, South Jersey, maybe Delaware. Know your geography? Half the people in this country don't even know. They don't even know if they had one of those things. When I was a kid, used to go to a doctor's office or something. They had this thing on the floor that was like a puzzle of the states. And you had to put the states in their proper place. Most kids could do it, but there was always those duh kids. And I'm not talking about somebody with a, some mental deficiency. I'm not making fun of anybody. I just mean just an idiot, because that's what we live with right now. A lot of functionally illiterate people because of a poor education system. And all these people try to stick up. I always love these people who try to stick up for teachers, right? They'll criticize the teachers union and say, but there's only good teachers out there. Well, if we had good teachers out there, we wouldn't have the majority of people coming out of the school system who are functionally illiterate. What I see is a teacher who's afraid to stand up to the administrators and say, screw you, all right? I'm teaching these kids geography. I'm teaching them real history. And getting fired or standing together. What's the purpose of a union? You know what the purpose of a union used to be? That was because one person stands up, you get fired. But when the union comes together as a union group and we say, no, we're going to teach our kids, real history, real geography, real science. All right. Yeah. We're not going to prompt them for testing from state and federal money. So you bureaucrats, the administrators, where a lot of these school systems, particularly the, they so-called middle school type of schools, they have literally more administrators, high-paid administrators than they do to actual teachers teaching curriculum to students. More administrators than teachers. And that's why, and then they force these teachers. But the thing is, where's the union standing up? So why do you have all these functionally illiterate people? I got family member of the teachers, all right? I'm just as disappointed with them as I am with, every other teacher in the country. Teachers union sold out. You know what they're worried about? Pensions. Everybody's worried about money, right? So what are the unions? It's all about money. We demand higher wages. We demand to have this pension. We demand more days off. We demand, a bigger cafeteria, a bigger, teacher's lounge. When was the last time you demanded a better education for the children? You ever think about that? I don't want anybody commenting on that because you got nothing to comment on. I was the boss so many times, as to continue this story about all the things I've done when I was younger. I was telling somebody yesterday on the phone, I'm saying, there's not enough people that were like I am. I'm a fun-loving guy. I laugh. Watch some of my videos. I mean, it's hilarious. Okay. I mean, I'm on kind of a serious rant right now, but I don't know.
Good morning.
Cheer up. Be happy. I'm not gonna have a heart attack over this. I'm not gonna, my blood pressure's not gonna go up. So, I mean, I may be
Presenting the world's greatest everything.
But still, let's not worry about that. But I was a no-nonsense guy. And so the idea is I wanted to get the job done because I was hired for a reason. If you brought me in, I basically solved the problem. I was a problem solver. I was a business turnaround guy. And that was the type of challenges that I like. I don't take any nonsense from somebody. And so these teachers are just full of crap. And so they don't want to stand up. Nobody wants to be a prick. You got to be a prick sometimes. That doesn't mean you're not a good manager or a good supervisor or a good head of whatever you're in charge of. But yeah, sometimes you just have, and if people want to look at you as that way, that's fine. Your job is to get the job done. The teacher's job is to educate kids. If on the side they can get some, better, bigger teacher's lounge, that's great. But that's not their number one priority. So screw them. Screw anybody like that. So I did these things one at a time from an early age, from like 18, 19, 20, 21. Worked a couple of years at this, worked a couple of years at that, did it, mastered it, and moved on. And so that's how I managed to do all these things before I reached the age of 40. And so instead of being a jack of all trades, master of none, I was a master of dozens of trades. All right. And my name wasn't Jack. And, and yeah, exactly. Right. The parents and teachers are at fault because the parents don't demand as much. But, yeah, teachers are overrated today. Like I said, I have family. I'm going to say which one. I have family members who are teachers. All right. And so I know what's going on. And I've had arguments with them. It's like I don't agree with them. Because, the thing is, the fact of the matter is it's just not I just wouldn't want. I'm glad I don't have kids, put it that way. Because for a million reasons. But that's not the purpose of today's topic. Today's topic is to get into this thing, the AMOC, all right, what used to be called the Atlantic Conveyor, and the fact that it's been slowing down, and it's the slowest it's been in 1,600 years, and that there's cooler water coming from the Beaufort Sea, which is up by Greenland and Canada, which is one of the greatest reservoirs of fresh water. And that has nothing to do with climate change or global warming or melting or anything like that. That's always been there. It's always been the biggest reservoir of cold water that's accessible. And what's happening now is this conveyor is slowing down, all right? And what it's believed to be is due to the magnetic field, all right? That ultimately controls the jet streams on the planet. All right. So when Texas had that cold weather, that was because of dip in the jet stream. They call it a polar vortex. Basically, what it is the jet streams usually are just something come across like that. You know, there's a northern one and there's a southern one that comes the other way down south, southern part of the planet. And when there's a dip in the jet stream, sometimes in areas like, say, Illinois, Chicago, Detroit, into Pennsylvania, they'll experience colder weather. Then down even to DC. All right. But sometimes, and more recently, we've seen it, but this has happened in the past. All right. That's not the first time Texas had snow or froze. Okay. It's like when people talk about the storm of the century, or this hasn't happened in 30 years or hasn't happened in 50 years. Yeah, it hasn't happened in 30 years. It hasn't happened in 50 years. It's a storm of the century. So what? But it happened before and it'll happen again. Well, anyway, these are all cyclical things and there's factors to them. So when the jet stream really dips, and sometimes it takes that dive. All right. That's what happened. That's what caused that Texas situation. And I was almost going to say the word anomaly, but it's not an anomaly. It's just the reality. It happens. It's going to happen again because we're entering a period of cooling, grand solar minimum. The sun magnetic field is weak, and so is the Earth's. We have an anomaly down in the South Atlantic where basically there's areas where there's no protection from cosmic rays right now. And that has nothing to do with CO2 at all. It has nothing to do with cow farts or anything. In fact, it's in areas where there aren't even, industrial production or anything of the kind, And right now the magnetic poles are migrating. The northern pole is migrating like this, and the south pole, the magnetic south pole. Here's a picture of Antarctica. Okay, the south pole, which used to be here, is actually up here. It's not even on the continent. It's no longer at the southern continent of Antarctica. All right, it's not there. Now, I know all this stuff. Here's like a British Geological Survey map. I'm just holding this up as an example that I have all these things. I mean, these were expeditions that I was involved in. There's 3 guys. I used to put this up for the flat Earth people. I did a video about it. These are 3 guys that literally walked to the South Pole. These flat Earth people, they don't believe that there's that the South Pole is the end of the Earth, and beyond that you fall off. It's a flat. We're in some kind of like crazy thing. But yes, I spent a lot of time doing this. All right. That's a chin strap penguin. And obviously, if looking at its marking, you understand why they call it a chin strap penguin. Those things are actually pretty tall, like 2.5 feet. They look like they're like the size of kids when you're next to them. These are just some copies of some old newsletters I found that I used to put out for these cruises and these expeditions that I used to cover. You have to see at the bottom here, these guys carrying their skis across this. These were like ski cruises they would do. Sometimes I would study expedition. I would work for, this is on the Antarctic Peninsula. Look how beautiful it is. Even from just these paper printouts I just found, I still had a copy of. And I used to do live. Here's a photo by a guy named Chris Erickson. He was one of the guys on the expedition. But look how beautiful that place is down there. Yeah. And imagine skiing and snowboarding. You see two guys with skis and one guy with the snowboard. That's Doug Stalp with the snowboard, the darker figure in the middle. But look at that. Beautiful, pristine water. Yeah. So that's I only bring this up. There's another picture of Antarctica. And like I say, I used to do everything. That's a design I made for the patch. Because anytime you go on an expedition, there's always a patch. It's like NASA every flight. This government does. Every government does this too. You always have to have the patch. So that real chin, you can see I designed this based upon that actual photo of a chin strap penguin, and I basically sketched it. And he's holding skis, and behind him is the continent of Antarctica. That neat. Well, anyway, so I worked with these guys, various explorers and people like that. And so I got to know, this continent. I also got to know the Himalayas, and I also got to know the North Pole, which is which we'll get to. And I don't have an awful lot of that. I have a lot of video on the North Pole, which they're still, the same guys are still taking expeditions and tours where they're, taking people to the pole. And so it's not like it never melted, like Al Gore said. Well, I forget when his first movie came out. Al Gore movie, Inconvenient Truth, 2006. Okay, 14 years ago. All right. And his idea was like, by the year, what was it, 2012 or something like that, it was going to be all over. So 15 years ago. And they're still like, and now we're seeing we're seeing this proof that they lied. They just fudged numbers. Guy became a billionaire. They say he guys like him and Kerry are responsible. The output from their private jets and their constant flying around to promote all these things are using more fossil fuels than some small countries. I mean, the hypocrisy of it is beyond belief. But I don't mean to be an angry guy here, because I'm not angry, and I'm not, because I'm trying to do this to help other people. service to others instead of service to self. I have no reason, I have no gain. I'm not a political person. I don't, I, you know, I'm just doing this to share this information because I was there on the front lines. That's all. I don't like people who talk secondhand. They see a meme, they see a TV newscast, they see 60 Minutes, or they see some documentary on Netflix, or or that gore movie that was just total, like one lie after a lie on top of a lie, right? I don't like that, because I know firsthand that they're lying. So that it's the reason why politics is pop culture, why I got rid of my television service, because I just got so tired of the lies. It wasn't even worthwhile, having access to something in case I wanted to watch, a thing, because there was so much it was 99% garbage on there, and 99% lies. And in between the lies, they were selling used cars, like the newspapers, full page ads for cars and used cars. They're used car salesmen. That's all they are. It's all the media is anymore. Used car salesmen. So the serious problem we have, and I have the day the earth froze on the title card of this, is that we're, apart from yesterday's video, which dealt with this 12,000 year cycle, all right? Because everything's cyclical. You have to understand that. And that's the whole magic of this whole thing. On how else to describe it. Everything seems to just, that conveyor conveniently, warmed the planet, right? And allowed Western civilization to exist. Now, of course, Western civilization has fallen, and, the freezing over of Europe will just be, the proverbial last nail in the coffin. Though the Great Reset pretty much is that too. And, in the U.S., we're going to experience crop failures and much colder weather. And this will get gradually more intense as time progresses in the coming several years. This isn't like going to be like a 50-year, 100-year thing. So the complete opposite of what, like, this Agenda 2030 and these people saying, oh, if we don't do this within 9 years, because that coincides with their Agenda 2030 to create this totalitarian global governance. But they'll say, if we don't do this by 9 years, by 2050, the Earth, global warming will be runaway. There were so many tipping points. I think 2010 was supposed to be a tipping point. Then 2012, 2016. They kept moving it back. There is no tipping point because there never was anything to tip. The temperatures, when they say that the temperatures have risen 1 degree Celsius here or 2 degrees Celsius, it's like they're not taking into consideration about 5 different reasons why their measurements are incorrect. They don't take into account the proliferation of airports and air travel from like the 1960s, all right? The number of airports, and that most weather reporting stations, which is nothing more than a thing you'd see on the top of a barn, right? a barometer, a spinning thing to see what the wind is, and a thermometer, right? As a weather station. I once was involved in coordinating dispatches and an expedition to northern Antarctica, tied in with NASA JPL, to put a weather station out in the northern part of Antarctica. That's a weather station, okay? To in fact, part of that we were going to be testing one of those rovers, but they decided not to take the rover, and I really kind of wish that we would have had to. We were going to test the rover down there, but instead it was just put in this weather station, right? But most of these weather stations, quote end quote, are on airports. Now think of an airport. An airport has what they call a tarmac, okay? This asphalt, big asphalt, black asphalt, and constant jet engines taking off and landing, all right? Now, go out someday, all right? Say on a 50-degree day, all right, which is still kind of cold. Say 48 degrees, 58 degrees, or 50 degrees, 48, 50 degrees. The temperature you serve Heineken at, all right? Refrigerator, type of temperature, cooling temperature, but not not your freezer. And stand in the sun, or on the, you've got a choice. Go to a white concrete spot, all right? Put your hand down on that on a 48 degree day. The sun shining. And then put your hand on a street that has, a black tar, asphalt, macadam, whatever you want to call it, street, black tarmac type of situation. And depending on how long the sun's been out and what time of day it is, you'll almost burn your hand on it. In the summertime, you'll definitely burn your hand on the street. You can't walk barefoot on a black tarmac, right? But you could on the sidewalk or the grass. It's not going to burn your feet because it's the same thing. It would be like going poolside and wearing white, like a white cotton loose fitting shirt or a black turtleneck. You know what I mean? A lot of this stuff is common sense, but people watch these talking heads, right? That get paid millions of dollars, who are basically used car salesmen and saleswomen, and they believe them, but they never, and they're talking science, but they never take that's a scientific experiment you could do yourself. Between the jet engines, the heat of the jet engines, and the black tarmacs at airports. Airports are basically one of the hottest places on the planet, during the better part of the year, spring through fall. Now, at the same time, we have in cities, the growth of cities over the same time period that they're trying to claim that man warmed up the planet. Well, they're right kind of in a way, but I'm going to explain exactly how messed up they are. You didn't have meteorology departments in a lot of universities. There are places like Penn State where probably the majority of people who were in the early days of the Weather Channel and some of those places, they all came out of schools like Penn State. They had a meteorology department. They were actually graduating meteorologists. And there's several other places. But it wasn't a big thing, decades and decades ago. So now you have you have this climatology climate science and all this stuff in the advent of all this craziness. And a lot of these places, and people have studied this. This is like, this is documented. And a lot of times these buildings where they have their classrooms, they'll actually have one of these weather, stations. Like I say, a weather station is just really a box, with some slatted wood on it. It's basically a barometer, thermometer, and a wind gauge, basically. All right. And powered by a mini solar panel, to send, and to send a signal, through to whoever wants the person who set the box up, In the case of the Antarctica ones and remote ones, it's like through like a satellite phone type of satellite uplink. And in other ones, it would be through a cellular network. And in instances on universities and other places, it would be like a Wi-Fi or just a hardwired, Ethernet type of thing, or a phone line or something like that. So they have these things on universities, like on the side of a building where there's a parking lot, i.e. tarmac. In the cities themselves, they create their own temperature. It's like, and that's a fact. You can't argue with that. In other words, because of, the cities, the concrete jungle, right? What is a city? It's basically streets made of black streets, buildings with HVAC systems, the so-called huddled masses in their cubicles in these buildings, generating heat, temperature, their own, And to top this off, post the Cold War, a lot of those Soviet stations stopped reporting, the ones in all those colder bases and stuff, because they closed those things down. People don't know that. Today, so many people, they confuse Russia with the Soviet Union. It's like the Soviet Union was huge. It was huge. Russia, on the other hand, is, is just a country, just a country. And when it broke up, it lost all these key places where they had bases and everything. And those bases were all reporting, weather. And most of them were in colder climates. They're no longer reporting. And then you have satellite, okay? And what's never mentioned, like this, satellite, it's kind of like when you go into the thing now with this plague, they have those things where instead of putting a thermometer in your mouth, which I did last week, my temperature was low, they just point this thing at your head and it tells you the temperature. Those things came out of like the construction, industry and stuff, where they used to point these things at the wall to see if you had enough insulation and where the heat loss, or whatever, heat loss or cold air or hot air was coming into your home. And somebody had the genius idea, well, hey, we could use that on somebody's head. Well, anyway, that's the concept that the satellite, that they take temperature with satellites from, okay, is pointing down, excuse me, and they'll point down on oceans. What they don't tell you is that as the day wears on and the sun shines on the oceans, it heats the surface of the ocean, becomes warmer than the ocean itself even. And so that also gives another false reading. that things are hotter. So I put it to you, backed by science and the real science, not some guy with some chart saying, look at this, and we've got to eliminate, people have to eat, Bill Gates, people have to eat fake burgers because the cows are emitting methane. Like what? Yeah, so what? So are people. Oh, that's why you want to depopulate the people. You want to get rid of like 2/3 of the people on the planet because they are drinking a carbonated beverage and expelling methane or whatever. I mean, if you really look at this from a standpoint, somebody like me who's been involved with this, like I say, on the front lines, and who's talked with real people. I'm not talking, and that's why I would, start this whole, excuse me, my whole tirade about teachers, which I include in that professors, is that the vast majority of them, and I'm not saying every single last one, but the vast majority of them, they've never been to Antarctica. They've never been to the Himalayas. They've never been to the North Pole. They've never been out in the sea, in the middle of the sea. They've never, many of them haven't traveled around the world, haven't traveled over both oceans, unless they went on a family vacation to Paris or something. It's like I've traveled around the world and I've conducted expeditions and worked with people and handled dispatches, satellite dispatches, live video casts from people from all parts of the world, and studied all of this stuff firsthand and talked to people directly who've been there. And the fact of the matter is, the world, this planet, is cooling. And it has not, and it's not, the temperature it's not accurate. What they're saying is simply not accurate. They're getting their readings from the wrong places and the wrong people. Okay? Simple, plain and simple as that. And there are so many people that'll argue and try to put up 14 different things. Yeah, well, it's been hotter here and higher. Yeah, that happens. That's the cycles of the earth. You have temperature swings and you have storms. We had the Dust Bowl, in the 1930s. Okay. So come on. I put up that picture in one of my earlier videos, the Time magazine from the 70s with a cartoon of Archie Bunker on that. Is the earth freezing? Are we entering a new ice age or whatever the heck it was? It's like every time, the sensationalism by these car salesmen, it's like that line, in Apocalypse Now, they're the politicians or these people, or they're grocery store clerks. You're a messenger sent by grocery store clerks. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but I might be right on. And that's what politicians are. And that's what the talking heads on TV are. Messengers from grocery store clerks or used car salespeople. That's all they are. They just happen to be wealthy and all made up and well produced. They're all productions. It's all show business. It's all a big joke. The world's a corporatocracy. All right. It's run by unelected people, the same people who are in power. It's a totalitarian state. We're on the verge of dystopia, basically. America no longer exists. Well, America exists, but the United States no longer exists because it's not united. It's never going to be united. It's disunited on so many levels, not just political. There's like sub levels underneath that. There's red, blue states, Democrat, Republican, but there's like levels underneath that, right? The amount of disagreement among people. So the name of the place is doesn't work. People can't come together. As Congress, they're about to pass a bill this week where one half of the Senate, no Republicans voted for it in the House, and all the Democrats voted for it. And they're saying that it looks like no Republicans are going to vote for this bill, and all the Democrats are going to vote for it. And the vice president will have to be the 51st vote in order for it to pass. So when they say a house divided, it's not a house divided. It's a country divided. And it's divided on, and it's gotten worse over the past decades. It's not getting better. And there's no thing to unite the people because they have hatred. See, before in politics and things like that, people had differences of opinion and ideology. They would argue over budgets. They would argue over different things, and then they would get together, and then they would have some kind of compromise. And neither side was completely happy, but they were willing to sign or agree on that compromise because they both felt that they were at least getting something from one another. In other words, in serving the people that elected them, right? Because that's what their job is. They're supposed to be representatives of the people. They forget that. They think they're, prima donnas or something. But, back to this. Yeah, we're already I can't believe this. We're already at over an hour. So I tried to demonstrate that I've been involved in these things. I wish I could show you some videos and stuff, but because of Google and YouTube's goofy interface that doesn't allow you to insert a picture or a graphic unless you go to pay $149 a month to some third party service or buy some $600 software that may or may not work on your particular machine. But the hell if I'm going to spend 6 hours pre-recording this and plugging in photos and and then exporting a file and then uploading a file and spend my entire day just to get a point out to you, which is really what part of this game is all about. They just don't want that. So this is the best I could do because I'm not NBC and I'm not monetized. And nobody's buying my book and my shirts and going to greatsolarstuff.com. Nobody cares about that. Yeah, it's annoying sometimes when I think about it. And they're choking my views. But I'm going to go longer because I want to get this point out. Because you need to know this. There will be crop shortages because of the cold. This World Economic Forum, Green New Deal is a lie. They're lying. It's just a totalitarian takeover, a globalist takeover by bureaucrats. Like I told you, we have an inverse system right now. The politicians are the lowest rung. The bureaucrats are in between, and the corporatocracy is at the top. Big pharma, big ag, all right? Big tech, which is in control of big data, all right? The corporate, big, finance, big finance, high finance, Wall Street, all right? The globalists, central banks, the Davos set. That's who's running the world. And so the politicians are, sometimes I call them marionettes, and the corporatocracy, the puppeteers. But the idea is they don't even need these marionettes anymore. That's why that's why they have a guy they're laughing at you. They put a guy with dementia in as the president of the United States to basically giving the people of the world, particularly the people of the United States, they're giving you the finger. They're saying, you fools, man. We control everything. And and so we're going to demonstrate it in living color. We're going to put a guy with dementia in to demonstrate to you how your president and your Congress are meaningless people, are meaningless, powerless. All right? Stooges. That's what they call them in when it was in the film business, they're stooges. Not like the Three Stooges. It's like the stooge means you're somebody's, basically puppet. You're basically the messenger of grocery store clerks, right? You're a stooge. And so the media are used car salespeople, right? I have and the average person is still on social media. I'm not doing that. They're still on social media. They're still arguing back and forth, and they've got all this hope and cult of personality. Politics is pop culture and all this la blah 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 stuff. And they're and it's a constant talk. And these people are making millions of dollars on TV talking about this stuff that has no effect on whatsoever. It's all being controlled. And the bureaucrats in the middle who are still fixated on trying to control these, marionette politicians who are powerless, irrelevant, and insignificant, should be focusing their nefarious powers on the corporatocracy, because the corporatocracy, as I said yesterday, is gunning for the bureaucrats, for the CIA, for the NSA. They don't need them anymore. Okay? They've been in league with them and with DARPA in developing all sorts of technologies, but you have no idea what's going on in Silicon Valley. The government shouldn't trust Apple. All right? Don't trust Google, Alphabet. Don't trust, Amazon, AWS, their server services and stuff that basically are holding CIA data on it. You don't understand how compromised our intelligence agencies are and our bureaucracies are by big tech, the corporatocracy. And the corporatocracy aren't fools. All right? They're not fools. They've got copies of everything. All right? Like I say, if you've seen a spy thriller, a DC spy thriller, a political thriller, a Mission Impossible or something like that, these guys are way beyond that, 10 times, 20 times, who knows, maybe 100 times. They've got fail safes. They've got stuff. They're gunning for the CIA, the NSA, and the DIA. All right? The corporatocracy is taking over the world. That's what the World Economic Forum, Great Reset is all about. And the bureaucrats in DC who are still pointing and looking at politicians and worrying about and these hearings they have and all that stuff. That's political media circus for used car salesmen about messengers for grocery store clerks. And if you don't wake up to it, all right, you're in for a big surprise. Very big surprise. Because the corporatocracy is going to eliminate the whole bureaucracy. That's why the whole funny thing now about opening up immigration and stuff is absurd, especially with a planet cooling. Because those people, those poor misguided fools that are coming to America for opportunity don't realize the place to be is Costa Rica and El Salvador and Nicaragua, southern Mexico, northern parts of South America, Panama area and stuff. It's like that's where the money should be put in. That's where the places should be built up. It's not really hard to get rid of cartels and get rid of gangs and stuff like that. Not if you have the money behind you. You just come in and clean it up, and you take care. And instead of coming in like the CIA did with the banana company, right? And tried to change governments because of fear of communism and things of that nature. All right. No, you come in and you do the right thing. You rebuild the infrastructure to make the lives of the people. It's their country after all. But that's what you do. You offer them generosity because we're already sending we're sending these people like a $500 million or ridiculous amounts of money to these countries. But that all gets sifted off, it's the same with the money that's sent to Africa in form of aid. It all ends up in the hands of some guy, who's got a team of guys with machetes going out and, chopping people's arms off. No, what you do is you go into a country, particularly Mexico, Central America, South America, and you offer them aid, but you say what we're going to do is help we're going to rebuild your infrastructure for you, and we want nothing for it. Our whole reason for doing this is we want to improve this hemisphere. All right, and we want to create areas that can be where people can invest, build housing units, right? And things of that nature. So that as the planet cools, or farm and, more advanced farming areas, instead of having people bending over on their backs. These migrant farmers come up. How do they know how to pick this, that, the other, and stuff like that? All right. It's because that's what they're doing. They've been spending most of their lives bent over picking strawberries or something, out of the ground. Well, we don't need that stuff anymore. We have modern farming methods and machinery and equipment, heavy equipment to do that. And that's what we should be doing. So that so we have places that will be, we'll still have a climate that can grow and produce food. But see, the World Economic Forum, the real kicker as I close this out is that they want depopulation. They want food shortages. They're pushing this Green New Deal because they don't want fossil fuels, because if with fossil fuels, we'll be able to stay warm. People will be able to survive. You see? So they've created this whole fantasy as if CO2, is bad, and as if, heating fuels are bad. And they make these windmills and things like that look like they're good, and they're not. They're basically overpriced bird killers that destroy landscapes and have a short lifespan, and then just sit there and rot. It's like these solar reflector farms, not like individual solar panels. I have a thing, greatsolarstuff.com. Buy some solar panels for your house, or a portable solar panel, so you can charge your stuff when there's a power outage or a storm. No, like these reflective solar farms where the glass just breaks and they just become useless. Right? Carrie saying, guys who fix, get rid of a pipeline, safe pipeline, and the guys who are welders and experts in using heavy equipment to, build and dig and orchestrate, the construction and, the whole logistics of building this pipeline. Oh, those guys could become, let's make them windmill technicians or solar panel technicians. Who the heck needs a solar panel technician? Get the glare off there. Those are foldable solar panels, but you could buy regular solar panels. You see that thing in the front? There's a handle on the top of it. You see these things here? You plug stuff right into it. Over here, these are like USB. Plug your cell phone, your laptop, charge it, plug in your lights, a fan, whatever you want, depending on how big a wattage version of this thing you get, you could run anything on it. Who needs a technician? Have you seen Tesla's thing? He's got these, basically he's come up with not Tesla, Elon Musk. Musk has these tiles that look mimic everything from the classic California, ceramic type of roof to the stuff you see in the Northeast, that look like regular, roofing tiles, but they're not. They're solar collectors. They're solar like collectors, but they look like a roof. It just looks like a roof, and it costs the exact same price basically of a roof, and has the same life expectancy, which is a roof is like 20, 25 years or something. You can expect a roof to last. And it connects to a thing you put in your garage or basement, and you could plug your electric car, but it also could, it's also tied into your house and runs the power of your house. And you're grid connected so that, in the instances of, where you would have, say, some prolonged, dark period, a storm that lasted 2 weeks or something like that, and the sky was completely gray and your minimal amount of wattage coming into your system, well, it comes in the grid. But most of the time in most areas in the US, you actually be selling power back to the grid. Solar. So there's no need for technicians for that kind of stuff. And this guy sits there with his facelift and his Botox face. The guy looks like a clown, I mean, it's one thing to use a little bit of Just for Men on your sideburns, which I could probably use. I think my sideburns are a little bit white. It's one thing to do something like that, but a guy like Carrie looks like a clown, man. And he's lying. He's a liar. Just like Al Gore. They're liars. There's people on TV. They're liars. They're lying to people. So, so the solution is simple. It's we should be focusing on helping, preventing, rather than having people want to come into the United States from these areas. Or we should say, look, if you guys want to come here, let's do an exchange program, like a student exchange program. Let's do a people exchange program. All right. You want to send up, 10,000 people from beautiful Nicaragua or something. Well, then let us have 10,000 people, we'll take, let 10,000 people here be able to sign up to go down there and have an acre of land and, build a house or something. Or give us the equivalent of whatever space those individuals took up. Let us have, some farms down there to produce food for our people. And ultimately these people that you're sending up here. Because we are not going to be able to produce the food necessary as the earth is cooling. And now it's being reported, even though it's still being spun and weaved in a different way. And with the likes of Bill Gates taking over farmland, we're in big, big trouble. Mr. Depopulation himself. Anyway, so thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Sorry that the tone of this was like kind of, a little bit on a downside.
Good morning.
But, have a good morning and have a good day. And sometimes you just have to get on a rant. I'm a happy person, and
Same time, same station.
I'll be here tomorrow. Hopefully. I say I feel good. At least a lot better than I felt last week. And just look out for yourself. That's the whole thing. And remember, like I say, we have 5 senses and creativity, and they can't take that away from us. They can't take away truth and beauty. The what life is really all about. And we can live as long as you're outside of the grasp of these totalitarians. And that means like in the inner cities, in the cities, right? You have to somehow get away from that. And as I've said 1,000 times or close to it, my mortgage, insurance, and taxes where I live, and I'm on the outskirts of town in like a market, which is within a top 100 market, just on the edge of town, but technically within the city limits. My mortgage, taxes, and insurance is only $200. Yeah, $200. And you can hear cars passing by. There's a street out there. This is a neighborhood. There's a doctor's office next door. There's a hardware store. There's a pizza shop. There's a grocery store. There's a dentist up the street. There's bars and restaurants. There's a convenience store, all within walking distance of where I live. All right. This town has an opera and a symphony. All right. There's branches of a university here. All right. All the things that you have in the city, in the big cities, I should say. And what you got to move to these secondary markets or move to the outskirts of town. Or if I had to do all over, I probably would have moved to, the Midwest or someplace like that. But I am where I am. I'm in the mid-Atlantic states, and that's fine. But it's cheap. And I'm free of them. So that's why I'm saying I'm not monetized. I'd appreciate it I think this book will help you open your mind to a lot of the stuff. I think, some of my shirts and my solar things and all that stuff will be helpful. But nobody's buying it. I wish you would. But I'm not here to make money. Like I say, it's service to others. I'm just trying to share my experiences because I've had a very rich life, not rich financially necessarily, but basically experientially. And so I know these things, and I'm sharing things that I know firsthand. I'm not, these aren't memes. This isn't posts. These aren't tweets. That's why I'm doing this live, and you see the handkerchief and, drinking my soda on air, uncut. That's it. So that's it. And
Good morning.
I'll see you tomorrow or the next day, whenever I do the next one of these, most likely tomorrow. Cheers. Peace.